Hey guys, we're going to talk about Solitary Patron Snow and his base form and his brave form, and also his sample rotations and sample builds, as well as his strengths and weaknesses. In the end, I will give my final thoughts, so let's go. Alright, so Solitary Patron Snow is a physical tank in base form, and he turns into a magical tank in his brave shift form. His STMR is called the Crystallized Claw, Defense 175, Spirit 175. It's a unique fist weapon that has no attack whatsoever. Instead, it has defensive stats, defense, and spirit, similar to a shield. So it could be great on a spirit-based damage healer who can equip fists. Like, I'm looking at you, Neo Vision Awakened Swanwu, and King Long. The best in slot for NV Snow, since he needs both flat defense and spirit for both his forms. Here is Snow's TMR. It's called the Hero Rides. Passive is increase static HP 750, increase defense and spirit by 40%. This material is the only one of its kind for now. It gives static HP 750, increases defense and spirit by 40. It's obviously great on tanks and supports. This is also great for NV Snow himself, as he wants to boost his defense, spirit, and HP. Next is his vision card. It's called 500 Years of Grief. So level 1 stats, base HP 500 and base defense and base spirit 30. At level 10, it gives 1000 HP and 60 defense and spirit. So passives are at 4 and 7, wishing to be reunited, increase HP 20% when equipped with an axe, and also increase HP 20% when equipped with a fist. Level 10 is Everlasting Memories, limited to male units only. Increase equipment defense 50% when single wielding axe or fist with or without shield, and also equipment spirit 50% when single wielding axe or fist with or without shield. So it's not the best vision card for pure tanks, like a pure magic tank or a pure physical tank, because of the split flat stats and lower flat stats. The passives are hard to proc as well, especially the axe ones. But this is perfect for NV Snow, since his role is a dual tank. He wants defense, also he wants spirit and HP, so pretty good for him, especially with equipment defense TDH and equipment spirit TDH with or without shield. So those are unique passives that Snow actually wants. This video is sponsored by Amazon Coins. Get 10,000 Amazon Coins for $80 instead of $100. That's a savings of 20%. You can use the Amazon Coins to buy Lapis for FFBE. I place a link in the description below. Check it out after you watch the video. If you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Azure. I upload FFBE and gaming content every day on this channel. If that's something you're interested in, then consider subscribing. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well, and check me out at various social media. Links in the description. Alright, next is his base form. He can equip axes, fists, light shields, hats, clothes, and accessories. His equipment pool is a bit limited. As for armor, he can equip light shields, hats, clothes, and accessories. He has 100% resistance to ice and partially resistant to water and light. He is weak to fire at minus 50%. He is immune to sleep, petrify, and has 50% resistance to paralyze and disease. He also has permanent dual cast, but there's no triple cast in his kit. NV Snow has a lot of defensive abilities in base form. He can cover allies from physical damage for 5 turns. On top of that, he can also apply a 50% physical mitigation and a 250 defense buff to the party. He can also apply higher buffs and mitigations to himself. So his physical cover, chance to protect all allies from physical damage 80%, with damage mitigation 65 to 70% for 5 turns to caster. And chaotic fighting spirit physical is mitigate physical damage taken 50% for 4 turns to all allies, increase defense to 50 for 4 turns to all allies, and also increase resistance to defense break 100% for 4 turns to himself. ATB charge is increase his defense and spirit 300 for 4 turns to caster. Also increases his LB gauge 30 to caster and LB damage 200% for 5 turns to himself. Cannot be dispelled. And heroic guard mitigate damage taken 90% for 2 turns to caster. It doesn't cost MP, but it costs 48 LB instead. Do note that ATB charge is not part of his dual cast. So if you do use ATB charge, similar to SOS Lightning, you can only pick ATB charge and nothing else. His LB is a 4-hit ice physical skill that damages the opponent based on his defense stat. Snow can definitely deal damage with this LB since he has 150 LB damage passive and an active LB damage buff of 200. He can also debuff the enemy's attack by 85%, which is quite handy if you need emergency attack break. And also he can mitigate damage taken 75 for 1 turn to himself and recover 100 MP to himself. So his LB is called the Cold Ejection, max 4 hits, so you can fit that in a chain if you want him to finish with it. Cost 60 LB, ice physical damage 120 with defense scaling to 1 enemy. And his passive LB damage is called the Strongest Warrior Chosen by God. Increase LB damage 150, increase LB gauge 4 per turn, and increase LB gauge fill rate 150. And ATB charge will give him LB damage 200. Fist of Calamity is an attack, also scales with his defense, targets 1 enemy, physical damage 100, and that's the debuff, attack debuff of 85 for 4 turns to 1 enemy. So Envy Snow also has access to dual cast white magic, as well as some white magic in his kit. So he can perform support and healing duties while tanking if you're not busy tanking. So he has access to Dispel, Raise, Isuna, and Kiraga. Passives, Snow already has high defense TDH and TW. So I think more than half defense TDH and half TW. He does extra damage to demons and fairies and can counter physical and magic attacks with Recover HP. He also has innate dual wielding, but sadly no chain cap modifier increase of 200. So going down the list, attack mag HP and MP 70%. Kind of low on the HP passive. Increase defense 150, so you only need a couple more. Increase equipment defense 250 when single wielding axe or fist with or without shield, so you can still benefit from this even if you equip him with a light shield. Increase equipment defense 100 when dual wielding, so if you want to equip 2 of his STMRs, you can benefit from that. Also has increased equipment spirit 100% when dual wielding. Increase physical damage against demons 50 and 150 respectively. He can ignore fail damage 100%. Max 1 time HP above 5%, but it's a trust passive, so you either equip his STMR or TMR. He can counter magic and physical attacks 50% with recover HP 5%, max 5 turns. So he'll be recovering HP quite often. Also increase counter chance 30%, so it's also a trust passive. And increase LB gauge 4 per turn, increase LB gauge fill rate 150. And lastly, 7% MP refresh. Okay, we're gonna talk about his base form's weaknesses. Number 1, ATB charge is not part of a dual cast, so already covered that. And then 2, he doesn't have any innate evade and draw passives. So if you notice, he doesn't have any provoke skills or any evade passive, so which makes him hard to gear as an evade provoke tank. His kit doesn't really help him. He cannot equip short swords, which the common weapon that has evade passives, such as Crimson Dagger from Son or Locke's Dagger. So it'll be even harder. It'll be better to have another unit be the provoke tank. Example for that is SOS Lightning can be your provoke tank. Number three, although he can apply 50% physical damage mitigation to the party, he cannot buff their general mitigation. The general mitigation buff only applies to himself. So just take note of that. No general mit for the party, just for himself. Number four, limited equipment choices. He's missing light and heavy armor and helms, making it a bit hard to gear for defense, but it can be done with hats and clothes. Number five, he lacks an Ice Imperil, so he needs another unit to imperil Ice for him. His LB is Ice based, right? But he's missing Ice Imperil, so you might need somebody to Ice Imperil for him. Alright, here's a sample build. Since he won't be functioning as an evade provoker, you'll have more slots to focus on defense and HP, and possibly auto LB or LB damage. You can also equip Gabrant's vision card for more defense at the cost of dual wielding, because you need to dual wield to make efficient use of his card. Alright, so equipment, his own STMR and Escutcheon from Ramza. That's his STMR. Ayaka's hairpiece, Renora's conductor's uniform. Highest defense for clothes. And then sweet earrings from Sweet Luca. Sarah's pendant, we can get that from the raid box summon. Sarah's pendant gives 25 flat defense, but it does increase your equipment defense by 50% when you're TDH or sword in board. Ability, a hero rides as his TMR. It's really good, but you can replace that with anything since you already have his STMR there. Shield of the Chosen King from Gladio STMR. Defender, that's a FF13 exclusive materia, but it's really good. Increases HP, spirit, and defense. And ST Defense Junction from Lunatic Pandora Exploration, I think. That also gives defense buffs. Alright, so for vision card, you can either equip Gabrant's if you using him exclusively for physical tanking, or you can equip his own vision card, 500 Years of Grief, to take advantage of the 50% defense, TDH, or sword in board. And HP passives. Okay, here is a sample rotation I made for when you use NV Snow as a physical cover tank and support. You can use his LB when it's possible, but this is more of like no damage support, just physical mitigation and physical covering. So turn one, you activate his cover. Turn one, and then you buff defense for the party and also apply physical mitigation. And then turn two, you ATB charge, so you can get some LB gauge fill, and also boost your defense and spirit by 300. Turn three, heroic guard, because you can hopefully you can use that if you have 48 LB. And then Fist of Disaster, just to break attack. And then ATB charge again, chaotic fighting spirit, physical immortal guard, and then cover again, refresh your cover, and chaotic barrier. I think that's the 75 damage mitigation, and restore MP 100. And then turn 7, ATB charge again, and turn 8, buff again, and then heroic guard. It's a pretty simple rotation for his physical base form. Alright, we're going to talk about his Brave Shift form. So it turns into that thing. So it's available from turn 1. Duration is infinite, so you can indefinitely stay in Brave Shift form. Cooldown to normal is 1 turn. Cooldown to Brave Shift is 2 turns. So NV Snow turns into a magic tank upon Brave Shifting. He retains most of his elemental resistances except for light, so it got swapped for 50% dark resist. His status ailment resistances remain untouched, as well as his equipment selection. So similar equipment selection and similar resistances. The only difference is he lost his light resistance in favor of dark resist. He retains the use of ATB charge and immortal guard even when in Brave Shift form. He still has his dual cast also. He does gain some magic cover tanking skills. He can apply an AoE magic damage mitigation 50% as well, and a 250 spirit buff and break resist. So cover magic is his magic cover skill, and magic spirit of chaos is his spirit buff, mitigate magic damage taken 50% for 4 turns for all allies, and increase spirit 250 for 4 turns to all allies, increase resistance to spirit break 100 for 4 turns to caster. Envy Snow can imbue himself with dark. He also amplifies his dark damage, both physical and magical, by 15% at the cost of 25% of his HP. So he works like a Dark Knight. He learns a one-hit finisher that drains his HP by 50% and does damage based on his spirit stat. So Abyss Despair does 25% damage to himself, adds Dark Element to his physical attacks for 4 turns to caster, also adds Dark physical and magic damage 15% increase for 4 turns to caster, and Damnation is his finisher skill, magic damage 200% with spirit scaling to one enemy. So that's a physical, treated as physical, but it does magic damage, so you can imbue that with any element you want. But aside for Dark Element, you need to use an external imbuer, and this attack scales with his spirit. Snow's LB is a one-hit dark magic damage attack that scales with his spirit stat also. Also benefits from his 150% LB damage passive and 200% LB damage buff. Okay, it's called the Annihilation. Max 1 hit 60 LB, dark magic damage 130 with spirit scaling to one enemy. Also treated as also a physical skill that does magic damage. So but with spirit scaling. And then the strongest warrior chosen by God, it's a passive, so it's similar to his base form, and ATB charge will boost your damage, his damage, LB damage 200%. Okay, we're gonna talk about his BS form passives. Almost identical to his base form passives, except for the Spirit TDH and TW. So he gets 150% Spirit instead of defense. He also gets 250% Spirit TDH or Sword and Board. And then he also gets Equipment Spirit 100% when dual wielding, so similar to his base form. And then that's it. So it's exactly similar except for the Spirit TDH and the Spirit passive. So what are the weaknesses for his Brave Shift form? Number 1, Snow can function as a magic cover tank in his Brave Shift form. He cannot go back immediately to cover magic after being re-raised, since you need to shift to Brave Shift form, but there's a cooldown. He may not be the best magic tank to bring to the fight if he dies. So if you do bring him to serve the magic tank role, make sure to gear him really properly so that he never dies. So you don't have to worry about him not being able to shift to Brave Shift form and perform his magic cover. Number 2, he still has a limited equipment pool in Brave Shift form. One more weakness is that he cannot equip staves, so the common weapons that have high flat spirit. So you're limited to his own STMR, maybe, or maybe somebody else's fist that has high spirit, XWQL. He also cannot equip robes and heavy armor, which also provide lots of flat spirit. So you're still limited to hats and clothes. He'll actually want his own STMR to proc his spirit TDH and gain a bunch of flat spirit. Alright, number 3, he lacks a Dark Imperil, so he needs another unit to Imperil Dark. So similar to his base form, his LB is Dark Focused, Dark Element, but he doesn't have any Dark Imperil. So you need to use an external unit for that. I'll cover that later. And then number 4, he still cannot provide a general mitigation buff to the party. So only mitigation is to himself, general mitigation, but he does provide magical damage mitigation to the party 50%. This build, this is a sample build for his Brave Shift form. Mainly used as a magic cover tank, so we will not bother with his LB damage capabilities. Substitute equipment for more LB damage if you plan to use him for damage. So again, we're gonna use his STMR, and we're gonna use Spring Basket for his shield. I forgot her name. Esther and Sylvie. Okay, that's Sylvie's SUMR. Midsummer Boater from Facey, Renora's Conductor's Uniform again, Eris Choker and Luna Freya's Necklace for Spirit. And then his TMR, Beach Girls for more Spirit, Guardian of Light Kyrie for more Spirit, and ST Defense Junction. Vision Card is still 500 Years of Grief. Okay, so here is a sample rotation. We're going to cover magic attacks and mitigate damage to himself by 75% each turn. So we won't focus on firing off his LB, and we won't be using his ATB charge. So this is just purely for magic tanking. Use Heroic Guard when a threshold has been reached and a big magic attack is coming his way. So Heroic Guard costs 48 LB. So just keep saving your LB until you need to use Heroic Guard if there's a threshold attack that hits hard. So turn 1, cover magic and buff magic mitigation, and also spirit for the party. Chaotic barrier to 75% damage mitigation and 100% 100 MP regen. Same with turn 3, and then refresh your magic buff. A spirit buff and magic damage mitigation on turn 4, chaotic barrier again, and then refresh your cover on turn 5 and possibly heroic guard. Alright, here is an LB damage rotation. So if you're gonna use Snow as a dark LB finisher, here is the sample rotation. We can still increase his LB damage by equipping more passive LB damage gear. It's up to you. Depends on what gear you have for him. It's quite limited though. His equipment pool, I mean. So if you want to use a different element to deal damage, use his Damnation skill instead and use External Imbue. So turn 1, mitigate damage 75 and Abyss Despair. So that's his dark, physical, and magic amplification skill. And then turn 2 and then turn 3, just focus on filling your LB gauge. And then turn 4, fire off his LB, 673 mod with passive LB of 150, active 215% dark amp. Okay, and then turn 5, repeat from turn 1. Alright, it doesn't do much damage, but his burst is good. If you equip him with more passive LB gear, he will do more damage. Alright, so best companions for him. Envy Snow certainly needs some help since he lacks certain things as a tank or a damage healer. He will need some external support. Best units to pair him with are as follows, but not limited to these units. These are just off the top of my head. One, Savior Soul's Lightning. She can fulfill the role of an evade provoker since Snow doesn't have provoke in his kit. Lightning also counters with a 10 LB gauge fill to the party, which Snow certainly would want since he's really LB hungry. Plus, they make a great team lore-wise. So they're both from Final Fantasy 13. I think they're enemies, but they became allies. Alright, and number 2, Dark Fina and Saul. Since Envy Snow is a Dark LB finisher, he needs a Dark Chain to cap. So enter Dark Fina and Saul. Their base form LB is a Dark Tag Team ability, which Envy Snow can cap. So tag team, you don't need other units to make a chain. You just need Dark Soul and Dark Fina to make a chain with their LB. And it's self-chained, so you just need Snow to cap it. They can also Imperil Dark, which Envy Snow cannot. So Dark Soul and Fina and Snow all have innate demon killers, so they would make a perfect team when fighting demons. So final thoughts. Envy Snow is our first dual tank in the Envy era. So he's the first Envy dual tank. The 7-star dual tanks, Seaguard and Bash, can freely switch between magic and physical cover, but they share. You only have one form to equip, right? So uh, you cannot fully equip them for physical and magic damage. You have to sacrifice something. But Snow's forms don't share equipment, so we can gear him properly for either physical or magic damage. Base form for physical, magic gear for his Brave Shift form. I mean, for magic tanking. Alright, so although his equipment pool is very limited, he does benefit greatly from his TMR, STMR, and Vision Card. That makes him actually useful without any extreme need for equipment from other units. You don't need other equipment from other units to make him work properly. Pulling him and getting him his STMR, his TMR, and Vision Card will make him immediately useful to newcomers. Although he certainly wasn't made for veterans, who most likely have a larger pool of units to choose from, and also dedicated physical and magic tanks. He can also serve as a damage healer in Brave Shift form, in base form also, but his LP has high mods and he has his own dark amplification skill. The problem is gearing him for Spirit, TDH, and plus Shield. There isn't much equipment to support that build outside of his own STMR and Vision Card, and that raid item from the raid, Sarah's Pendant. He's also missing the chain cap modifier increase of 200%. So I won't be pulling for him as I already have a dedicated magic tank in Shoreline, Fina, and Daisy, and a physical tank in Envy Branth. But for those who are missing an Envy tank, physical, magical, or both, consider pulling for Envy Snow. Alright, so that's my verdict. P.S. I love his Brave Shift sprite. It's really cool. I like the way they made that. They did a great job translating his model, CG model, into pixel art. So that's it, guys. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Let me know if I made a mistake somewhere there. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Like and share the video and click on the notification bell to get notified when I upload new videos to the channel. Again, guys, thanks for the support and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.